Hello, welcome to the latest episode of Mirus Sofa Time. I'm Dan Sharp, Sales Director here at Mirus.
I'm Paul Tomlinson, Managing Director at Mirus.
So, as you've probably seen from some of our earlier videos, we've tried to do some small updates in regards to cyber incidents that we've seen, or how SMEs can help you pick an IT service provider and give a bit of insight into the world here at Mirus. Today we're going to do a next video in the series of cyber-related ones. Today's topic is about how a website was hacked. I guess, do you want to take it from there?
Yeah, I guess so. Today we want to talk really about the website, which is VSDC. It's a movie editing piece of software, and it was hacked in April 2019. And actually, it's not the first time it's been hacked. It's occurred a number of times with that particular website. The problem we've got with this website is it has 1.3 million downloads per month of the software that's available on there. So this is SMEs, home users, people like that, and even corporates downloading the software and continuing to use it within their business. So on this occasion, what's happened is people have managed to hijack the downloads, and what they've done is they've injected malware into the download. So the end user still thinks they're downloading the piece of software that they need, and that comes down and that works and functions as normal. But what also happened was it actually downloaded various different pieces of malware that were able to then, Trojans that were able to take control of the machine, that type of thing, and users weren't necessarily aware of that.
I guess the company is not aware that they've been hacked and this malicious activity's happened.
Yeah, certainly not initially. I mean, it's been rectified now. Yeah. So I think they're on top of it now and obviously trying to work out what they're going to do to prevent a further breach. But yeah, initially I think, there's nothing that I've seen that quantifies quite how big the impact is in terms of how many people have downloaded it and whether or not they've actually been able to contact the people who have been affected. So it leaves, there's a lot of uncertainty around how big the impact is, but certainly, VSDC have gotten on top of it now and hopefully have stopped it. But I guess the thing is not talking too much about how that's happened, but actually what the impact is the other side, to the people who have downloaded it. And we were looking at this and trying to work out in terms of our own customers, how many people have the software installed, and using the Automate tool that we have, we were able to scan all of our customer networks, look at when the tool was deployed on their machine and look at whether or not it was affected through this. So thankfully none of our customers were affected, which is great news. But
I guess the point is that these pieces of packets of software, if it's not controlled, can be downloaded to anybody that sits next to you in the office or wherever. It's whether they've got the security in place to stop that kind of thing happening, or at least try and detect it. Yeah,
absolutely. I think for our customers, some of our customers have controls that prevent their end users being able to download pieces of software like this, and some of them don't. So in a scenario where a customer didn't have those controls, they could quite easily have downloaded this piece of software with this embedded malware, and then it would have been the responsibility of the defences on the machine or through the network to stop it. The other side of it, though, where the customers do have those controls, is we're using a tool called App Locker. An App Locker basically allows us to whitelist particular applications or publishers that can be used within the client's network. The great thing with that is that the IT department or the IT company like us can actually control then what's being used. And if users do try and download software, if it's not within the parameters of what we defined as being acceptable, it can't be executed. So it just gives us a lot more control over what can and can't happen. And that's certainly the first thing that we'd look at with this type of thing, and where we're seeing more and more of our customers moving towards is taking more control over what goes on.
I guess the point is that people sometimes need a quick free tool that they think it's the easiest, quickest way to do something. It's just to go and download something, but don't necessarily think of the implications that something could be wrong or something could be malicious, completely unintentionally.
Yeah, exactly, and that is it. There's all these really quick tools that just think, I need to rotate this image or I need to do something. I'll go into Google, there you go, that's your tool. But you don't know what you're actually downloading. And also you don't necessarily know whether or not you've got rights to be able to use it for commercial purposes. So using something like App Locker and actually controlling that in a much more sort of mature way really does help. So I think App Locker is certainly one area to look at.
I guess the point is there's no one solution. It's looking at all the different bits and the stages of that process, isn't it? Like the layers of an onion people talk about, and I guess it's then things like Windows updates or antivirus and the other.
Yeah, and that's I think that probably the next point on from App Locker is thinking maybe firewall to begin with, and we're seeing more and more people look at deep packet inspection firewalls, more advanced firewall technology. When we look at bringing on new customers, sometimes we see that the firewall's 10 years old. It's not aware of these type of threats, whereas these newer next generation firewalls are. So where it's a piece of hardware and probably people didn't think that they have to replace it regularly, because what it's protecting against now is changing all the time. Yeah. We need to make sure our customers are replacing their firewalls regularly. And I'm not sure whether or not this particular type of attack would have been picked up by a next generation firewall, but other types might have been.
Yeah.
I think once it gets beyond the firewall, then we've got antivirus, like you said. I think it's surprising. We were talking the other day about the number of client or potential clients that we go to see and don't have any antivirus.
That's the thing. I think we spoke in a previous episode about health checks, and one of those key things is what their security they've got in place, because actually that's probably the biggest area now that we see that everybody certainly knows about in the press, but it's an area that is really under threat, and we're keen to understand firewalls, Windows updates, a very high level kind of penetration test. But
yeah, I think it's just it's so surprising that a potential client that comes to us who's come from another managed service provider or internally IT managed, they've forgotten to put antivirus onto the client machines, and a threat like
or a
this, or a server that's got no AV on it, which is just insane when you look at that. But then I think you touched on Windows updates. Again, threats like this, they use vulnerabilities within the Windows operating system or applications, not necessarily just Windows, but it could be an Adobe vulnerability or something like that, to then execute code on those machines. So we need to make sure that those are regularly updated and patched. Again, it doesn't necessarily protect this particular scenario, but it's one of those things that we need to make sure people are on top of.
And I guess it moves on then to probably more complex SIEM type inspection tools.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got SIEM, which is security incident event monitoring. We've got behaviour monitoring tools. Those tools would detect something like this actually running in the background and be able to alert the administrator and say something's not quite right, this isn't an expected behaviour, and allow somebody to take action. It hasn't stopped the actual initial infection, but it's hopefully stopped the impact of it too early on, so that the impact isn't too great. And no doubt this particular thing was found through an approach, whether it's through a security tester looking at something or a more mature IT user actually understanding what they ended up installing on the network. But yeah, I think like we've spoken about on previous episodes, it really is down to people taking IT security much more seriously, and just going back to the very basics of firewalls, antivirus, Windows updates, but also having a bit more control over what users are able to do. I think, if people are freely able to download any software they want, that gives us licensing problems, but it also gives us problems like this VSDC problem. I think it's a website that I've used myself in the past, so it's a very reputable site.
I guess that's the point, isn't it? It's not necessarily always going to be backstreet, but small, hard to find applications that you're going to download. It could be something that
1.3 million downloads is a lot. Yeah, so it's fairly reputable. So it's a nice quick one from us this month. Really, it's just the message really is be careful what you download, and obviously try and control things as much as possible. But just remember the basics, I suppose. That's
cool. Thank you very much.
Okay,
we'll see you next time.